Hello, aspiring administrators. I heard that you're learning about equitable practices in education, and I'm happy to share an example of an equity practice here at Laguna Road. Thanks to Janet Morey for considering me and allowing me to share our practices with you. So to start, my name is Cindy Bach, and it's my 16th year in education. I spent my first 10 years in Roland Unified as a teacher, a Coatson Fellow, teacher on special assignment, and program specialist for Balance Literacy. I transitioned into school administration in my home community of Fullerton, starting as an assistant principal at Beechwood K-8, then a principal at Valencia Park Elementary, and now I'm in my third year as a principal at Laguna Road. As you can see, I'm a proud Trojan, graduating with my doctorate from USC in 2015. So Laguna Road School is a K-6 school with about 615 students. Some of our signature programs include our one-to-one iPad program, award-winning performing arts program, STEAM integration, RTI, and GATE designated classes in 3rd through 6th grade. We've earned many distinctions over the years for our specialized programs and high performance levels on standardized tests. We have a long-standing tradition as a high-performing school with a very engaged parent community. The school had a legendary principal named Sully for 30 years, and then had another male principal named Dr. Wieswright for 3 years prior to my leadership there. One of our school initiatives in my first year at Laguna was to support the academic achievement gap between our English learners and general student population, specifically in the area of vocabulary acquisition and scholarly talk. Our demographic data includes 71% Asian, 11% Hispanic, 10% white, 7% two or more races, and 1% black students. We have 18 different languages spoken at our school. While 11% of our population are coded as English learners, many of our students have reclassified out of EL status, but still speak another language at home. Historically, however, our families have been adverse to completing the home language survey truthfully, as EL status is not highly regarded in our community. My hope, though, is that through parent education, through strong EL programs, that we can start to shift that mindset and perspective to show that bilingualism or dual language is a positive, not a negative. It's an asset, not a deficit. And so I know that there's some talk about changing the term English learner to emergent bilingual, which definitely has a more positive spin on it. And I think that would be a good thing for a community like ours. So our mission and vision in a nutshell is to activate student agency by inspiring and empowering our students to apply their learning, skill sets, and passions to make a positive impact in their world. In our hopes to engage all students in building future-ready skills, including the 6 C's of education, we chose this initiative on vocabulary because we really felt it would benefit all students, especially our students that were second language learners. Now, developing a shared commitment started with a story, a personal story about a little girl who immigrated to the US at the age of 3 and learned Korean as her first language. So if you haven't guessed it already, that's me. And learning 2 languages presented perks and challenges in my educational career. There were many times when I felt clueless or embarrassed when friends or teachers would use idioms or new vocabulary that I didn't understand, and this was all before the world of Google. In high school and college, I struggled to participate in academic discussions with the fear of not having the right words or vocabulary to speak like a scholar. And so I really challenged our staff to think about the perspective of our students and how we might equip and empower our students with the skills to speak confidently and to clearly articulate their thoughts and to ask questions without reservation and really take ownership in their own learning. So the process we used was definitely to start with that why through a personal story, stepping into the shoes of our students, and then showing relevant data and research that demonstrated a strong need to focus our energy on vocabulary acquisition. Then as a leadership team and staff, we made some shared commitments to practice around vocabulary and scholarly talk. Our staff was provided with ongoing PD using research-based strategies with an expectation that PLCs would collaborate and implement practices and reflect on their practices through a reflective loop, a cycle. And last but not least, celebrated their successes throughout the year. So ongoing discussions and feedback about academic vocabulary during staff meetings, PLCs, um, and celebrating those successes was really key to sustaining this initiative. They say what gets recognized gets repeated. So staff members were encouraged to share successes in the form of pictures, videos, examples of how they were incorporating these practices in their classroom. When the superintendent, Dr. Pleka, visited, I asked the staff to highlight our vocabulary focus, and they really came through, and our superintendent was amazed at just the consistency and the rigor and the focus on vocabulary across the school. He gave us a shout out on Twitter and Facebook, which really went a long way for invalidating the work that our staff was doing together. To get buy-in for this initiative, we maximize all stakeholder groups. Again, we started with a leadership team and our union reps. Then we got some buy-in from our school staff. And we celebrated our collective work with our parent communities. So during school site council, PTA, outreach, ELAC, and foundation meetings, we would share those pictures and video examples of the skill sets that our students were acquiring and the confidence that they were showing in the work that they were doing. So in terms of quantitative data, we used a combination of SBAC data and iReady diagnostic data to identify a need to focus on our ELs and on vocabulary acquisition. So that screenshot up above shows our comparison throughout the years in our students that were proficient or above in ELA, in comparison also to our students who are English learners. And so you can see that in 2019, 87.7% of our students were proficient in ELA. In the same year, 51.9% of our English learners were proficient in ELA. So really looking at why was there a gap there? What about our students do we need to know? What have we been doing well and what have we not been doing well, so that we can truly close this academic achievement gap. If you also look at the ELA change in our ELA scores, you can see that for our English learners, that 51.9% was a decrease from the year prior. And so really looking at where do we need to focus moving forward. In terms of qualitative data, our teachers shared their concerns about one-word responses or an inability to articulate thoughts and questions in a scholarly manner. And at first some wondered if it was just a cultural barrier that students didn't speak up and actively participate. Maybe they were shy. But as teachers released control and gave them the sentence frames and permission to speak, what they found was that students actually needed the empowerment to advocate for their own learning. And what we found was an increase across the grade level of students who are at grade level or higher in the vocabulary domain. So you can see here, the second screenshot is a breakdown of the domains in our iReady test scores, and you can see that vocabulary and comprehension were some areas of growth school-wide, in that there were less students who scored proficient, which is a green. But if you look at this screenshot at the end of the year, you can see that in grades 2 through 6, every grade had an increase of students who were proficient or above within the vocabulary domain. So this was a great point of success in an area that, something that we can celebrate as a staff to say we worked together and focused on this and look at the growth that we saw in the data. We used a lot of research-based strategies, including Marzano's 6-step process to academic vocabulary. We used the critical vocabulary of the Common Core, as well as some sentence frames for accountable or scholarly talk. Last year, we also provided our teachers with this amazing read aloud that was just perfect and aligned to our vision. It's called The Word Collector by Peter Reynolds. And we encourage our teachers to read it to all students to further encourage academic vocabulary acquisition, but also to get them excited about learning new words and using those words to make a positive impact in their community. Equity is often confused with the concept of equality, and I think this picture says it all. Believing at the core that every student is a unique individual with strengths and areas of growth And then building a community of learners who feel safe to take risks and make mistakes is the first step to equity-driven practices. We are tasked with a very challenging role to ensure equity in our schools when there are really a lot of things that are outside of our control. And with that, I think as a leader, it's my mission to help our staff focus on what is within our control and then work collaboratively with solution oriented mindsets and in looking at the data and looking at best practices and reflecting on our work together and then pushing forward to do what's best for all students.